Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Leon Godwin and welcome to this webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing about how you can leverage AI today to drive business innovation for tomorrow. This is a subject I'm particularly passionate about, so there is a lot of information to get through, so I'm going to be going quite quickly. So we've got the outline. I'll introduce myself, provide a bit of information around the market, use cases, innovation, data, AI, automation, and some examples. So my name's Leon Godwin. I am the Principal Cloud Evangelist here at Cloud Direct. I've got 20 years experience in the cloud space, from public to private cloud. I operate as a technical advocate for customers, understanding their insights and feeding that back into the business, whether that be from ongoing support perspective or whether that be from a product perspective. I take that and help work as an advocate for you. I also am largely the face of the company and doing a lot of webinars and hostings, events, podcasts, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, and you can see my contact details there, and I would encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn. Right, this is going to be an interactive session, so there's no need to register or anything like that. If you simply go to slido.com in your web browser or on your phone, in the little box that comes up, just type Leon and then hit the little arrow. Then as polls and questions come up, you can respond to those. So again, no need to register, just go to slido.com, enter the hashtag Leon, hit the button, and you can follow along. Okay, let's get into this. Market changes. What are the forces going on in the market? Well, AI now is particularly prevalent because there are lots and lots of large data sets in your business, and people are recognizing the increasing value of their own data, as well as the computing power that can help drive these AI models has massively come down in price and massively gone up in performance, making it much more readily available. There's also a large amount of AI-powered services going on within the industry. In fact, in a couple of days' time, Microsoft are launching their AI-powered Copilot for 365, and they've basically infused AI into everything. And there's lots of industries that are wanting to lean on the power of AI. And on the chart you can see on the right is the projected forecast of the AI market, and you can see that it's going to be exponential growth. Now, the other thing that I want you to think about when we go through this presentation is the time it takes to adapt to disruption. You know, I'm very fond of paraphrasing, survival of the fittest are those organisations that are best able to adapt to change. It's not the strongest, it's not the biggest, it's those that are most adaptable. And if we look at the history of how long an organisation, in this case it's the S&P 500, which is the technology FTSE equivalent in America, once upon a time, when you were in that, you'd be in that for half a century. But as time has gone on, the time that you spend in that is much shorter because organisations are changing and disruptions are happening at a much faster rate, and people are having to adapt much faster. And AI is one of those forces. So what I'd like to do is there is a question on Slido now, so I would ask you to answer the question: is your organisation using Azure today? So again, if you go to slido.com, enter Leon in there, and you can just answer yes or no, and I'll give you a few seconds to cover that off. Okay. I can see that's adding up. Okay, so the majority of you looks to be that you are indeed in Azure as a majority. That's useful for the context of the next slide. I can see that's about 15% are not and 85% are. So the reason why that's relevant is this first step. If you are going to utilise artificial intelligence, step number 5, there are a number of steps that you want to undertake. For 85% of you, I suspect you've already completed step 1 and 2, which is get your stuff your data, your workloads, your applications into Azure, and then optimize that use to make sure it's performant, cost efficient, reliable, and governed, and that you have the correct setup in place. I would expect anybody who's taken those first steps into Azure would have completed that. Obviously, for the 15% of you that haven't, this is a journey that you can undertake, and we can help you with every step of the journey, but I'm not here to give you a sales play. But then as you want to move up to AI, you would look to modernize your estate. There are a bunch of services, everything, the fuel for AI is data. You have data in many different locations. You've got SQL servers and file server and Exchange mailboxes. There's data in lots of different silos. What's very useful is actually unifying that data, pulling it through into a centralized place. That would be an example of modernizing that. So then you can then go and do things like analysis of that data to drive insights. And then when you've got those insights, you can start providing artificial intelligence against it and automating actions off the back of it. So these are the kinds of the steps that you need to take. 85% of you have probably already completed step 2, so you only need step 3, 4, and 5. So let's look at some of the use cases for AI before we get into the meat and potatoes. Most of you on this call will be from companies that probably have a finance department, probably have some kind of operations capability, especially as 85% of you are in Azure, and you'll possibly have customer services, IT security, operations, risk and marketing. Now, I'm not going to go through all these, but basically all these are examples of how a department can use. So finance department, if you are processing lots of invoices, that's what ones you receive and ones you send. That typically involves a large amount of data entry and keying in all the different line items from all the invoices into your finance system. AI can actually help in that space and speed that up end to end. In fact, the whole innovation space can handle it end to end. And there are many examples. Now, I will be sharing these slides afterwards, so you can go and review these. This list is by no means exhaustive, in fact, far from it. Just from the interest of space, I've cut it down. So when should you use AI? Well, you have organic intelligence, the people, the brains, the humans. If there is a task within your business, your organization that requires emotional intelligence, use a human. Complex decision making, use a human. Creativity, interpersonal or moral or ethical judgments, use a human. And if there is a large amount of unpredictability and the need to adapt to that lack of predictability, again, use a human. However, if it's repetitive tasks or very large data sets or certain tasks that are beyond the human's capability, if you want to be able to run something 24/7, if you want to drive more cost efficiency, then artificial intelligence and the steps that precede it are what you should focus on. So innovation, these things don't happen in isolation. They don't happen by magic. It's all about driving innovation. In this context, I'm talking about the adoption of new technologies to address either existing or emerging needs. So that's what I mean by innovation. And in this context, the base building blocks are data, your company data, AI, and automation. When you can leverage all these together, not data silos, data holistically. When you can leverage all these things together, you're able to operate your business better, faster, cheaper. So let's examine those 3 steps. So data, this is a slide basically showing there's lots of data and it's getting bigger, and I think we all know that. There is also, not shown on this slide, isn't just a case of data volume, it's the speed at which data is arriving is ever increasing. Not only that, it's the variety of data. We now operate with semi-structured data like, I don't know, JSON, XML, emails would be examples of semi-structured data. Or there's unstructured data like you might find on your file servers, videos, music, audio, Word documents, PowerPoint documents, PDFs, that kind of unstructured data. And then you get structured data, the sort of things you'd find in a database your finance, your HR, your CRMs, etc., etc. There is a lot of different types of variety, volume, and the speed of data that you need to consider when you are going on this AI journey. Now, when it comes to data, a survey that I find this particularly interesting is 44% of people who undertook a survey said that getting the quality in their data is a problem. I think every business experiences this. You can have various systems, and actually you spend a lot of time having to work. If you've ever used, I don't know, Salesforce or a CRM, it requires everybody to contribute their part in delivering quality. But these things kind of evolve and processes evolve, and as they evolved, you are doing new things now that you weren't doing then, and therefore those data sets might not be as rich and consistent, and so that can be an issue. When you have the data, how do you get insights from that data? And when you have that insight, how do you act upon those insights? And how do you know what questions to ask of your data? And the great thing is in Microsoft Azure's context, and you'll notice I am going to focus on Microsoft Azure and just go off piste for a moment. Microsoft Azure, Microsoft invested £10 billion in OpenAI. OpenAI have the world's leading artificial intelligence tools and capabilities. All of that has been brought into Azure, where for 85% of you, that Azure is inside your established security boundary. So you can go and use other AI tools, and I encourage you to do so from an experimenting point of view. But when it comes to operationalizing things, put it inside your secure boundary. You don't keep your jewelry and your clothes outside your house. You put them inside your house, where in your established security boundary. And so Microsoft have the advantage that they're probably several generations ahead of the rest of the market when it comes to AI. And in these contexts of these 4 bullet points here, Microsoft have an answer and tools and services that can help with each and every one of those. So let's take an example of, let's say your organization has, maybe you sell some widgets and you've got some kind of ordering system. You've got a CRM with all your customer information on it. You've maybe got a support system with all your tickets in it. For example, this could be any data. Now, the first thing you need to do is those kind of in silos. So maybe some is on premise, some is in some other cloud provider, some is already in Azure. It can be all over the shop. If you're going to analyze data, you want it to be unified and in one place, because it requires a lot of performance to be able to analyze these. Not necessarily a lot of time and a lot of cost, but it's certainly, it's not the sort of thing you want to be doing over a network. You want to bring that data locally so it can be analyzed efficiently. So Azure has a service called Data Factory that can connect to anything, anywhere, as long as there is an appropriate network route. It has connectors to pretty much everything. Once you've done that, you can pull that data together into something that's capable of supporting information in multiple formats. So again, semi-structured, structured, and unstructured data, all in one container. Just think of it as a giant skip that you put all your data in, no matter what type it is. Then you want to potentially tidy up that data, because some of that data has come over, say, in an American date format, and we need to go and tweak that. And some of the data has client names in it. Maybe I don't want that, so I'll go and delete that column of data. You'll want to do some kind of monkeying with that data to get it to the quality. And maybe that there's only a 1% of each one of those tables that you need below. So then you'll delete 99% of the other tables, or whatever it is, you need to monkey with that data in some way. And Databricks is a service that helps you do that. Think of it like Excel on steroids. Then when you have all your data, you want to be able to analyze that data, and Azure has a bunch of analytics services that can go and help with that. But then as you grow and as you want to start using AI, there are a whole suite of tools available. In fact, I built one from complete scratch this morning, an hour and 20 minutes. I built an AI solution this morning, and I'll touch on that at the end if there's time. But Machine Learning Studio has all the tools to be able to drive and create your own business machine learning intelligence. And then ultimately you may choose to actually visualize this data because you want to democratize it in some way and share it with your board or key stakeholders or customers, whoever it may be, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Now, if we look at this loosely follows that 5-step process I talked about. Data Factory extracts the data that's akin to migrating. And then you're optimizing your data, which again is like step number 2. And then you are using more advanced tools, which is step number 3, the modernize. And then you've got the analytics and the AI there in step 4. And then the visualization is a nice icing on the cake. Now, whatever you want to do, you want to ensure that that is secure. Possibly managed yourself, third party, doesn't matter, but make sure everything is based on a secure foundation. Your ability to monitor and secure your environment to make sure you're not leaking data. A lot of these third-party services, I cannot stress this enough. I mean, I have done demos after demos on AI where I create and use, very cool and shiny. But all I've actually created is a data loss generating engine because you're just pumping company information out to a third-party service that you have no control or visibility over. So ultimately getting to that insight is about, maybe it's reporting and maybe you want to know what happened in your data. Then maybe you want to actually know why did it happen? And then potentially you want to know what will happen as a consequence of that and what action should I take? All of these together is your insight. And this is where your traditional infrastructure as a service may offer maybe step number 1, possibly maybe for some step number 2, but step number 3 and 4, generally speaking, that's about going up the cloud stack and leveraging the capabilities that are in there to drive those predictions and those recommendations and those automations. And that's the power of the Azure tools. Now, if we, having understood that data is the fuel for AI, let's just touch on AI. So can I ask you, how likely is your organization to adopt AI in the next 12 months? Not very likely, somewhat likely, or indeed very likely. I'll just give that a few moments. Okay. Getting some more coming in now. Okay, that's good. So we are seeing a general, that's a fairly even split. So 10 people responded, 6 people very likely, 3 people somewhat likely, and 1 not very likely. So 90% of you are somewhat likely or greater to do something with AI. And that makes sense because those organizations that adapt are able to get to respond to competition, open up new markets, and those that don't can potentially face some significant headwinds. So when it comes to AI and machine learning, one of the great things about Azure is there's no software to install, there's no hardware to maintain, you just need an Azure subscription. I did this the other day and I built a machine learning model, probably 20 minutes, and that's 20 minutes of me building it and creating the model. So the compute time I was crunching, when I'd finished, it was done. You can measure it in, it was less than 10 pence for me to go and build all this. Probably more if you factor in my time, but it's people think the barrier to entry is really high. It really is not. I cannot write code for toffee, but I have created loads of really cool AI solutions. So one of the things it's got, if you use PowerPoint, one of the benefits of the Machine Learning Studio, it has kind of like a drag and drop interface. So you're just like moving boxes around. That's kind of cool. And it makes it very easy to learn and play around with. Because of Microsoft's investments, the tools and technology and software that drives all this is the best in the world. Just the tippy top best. And it's able to deploy in minutes. So I'll give you an example. I wanted to build an AI this morning, so I had an idea. I need to be able to transcribe some YouTube videos on a particular subject so I can get this big knowledge base of information. Okay, but how do I do that? So I went to an AI, said, go and write me a website where I can go and put in some AI code, some YouTube links, and transcribe it using another AI service. 3 minutes later and 89 cents later, it created my website. I ran it on my laptop. I then fed it a bunch of YouTube URLs on a subject I'm very interested in, which is Power Pages. It's a feature of Power Platform. Loads of tutorials and how-to guides, lots and lots of, fed it loads of links, created a 61-page transcript of loads and loads of videos, fed it into an AI in Azure, created a chatbot, and then deployed it as a web application. That whole process, it took me about, to gather the data, took me about 15 minutes to an hour. To build everything and have it available as a website took me about 20 minutes. So it's very, very easy. And I didn't write a line of code. I just had an idea and I just used technology to drive the outcome for me. So there are loads of different, AI is it's a capability. It's like your brain has a particular skill. There are skills that relate to vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search. What you probably are all very familiar is with language, large language models. You've heard of ChatGPT. That is an example of that. The engine that sits behind it's actually called GPT-4, which is the world's greatest large language model and most powerful, and is available for you in Azure. Nothing you put in there is used to train it. It's your copy of that large language model. Whereas if you put your information into ChatGPT, all that information is trained on it. If I just give it enough information over and over again, in 2 years' time, a new version of the model come out, GPT-5, and then someone will be able to type in, and all of a sudden, confidential information is going to be leaking out of that I wouldn't have wanted. Whereas in Azure, it's secure. Make sure you're doing everything within your security boundary. So if we analyze the different approaches, let's skip past this. Let's say you want to build a chatbot, because chatbots are kind of useful for as personal assistants when they're AI empowered. If you can, this is similar to a ChatGPT model. I ask it a question, I put that in the interface, the large language model, the brain, the OpenAI-lessness of it all works out the answer, gets the response, and gives it back to the user. That's fine. There's nothing new under the sun there. But what happens if the answer is unsatisfactory? If I ask ChatGPT, what colour shirt am I wearing? It doesn't know. If I ask it, what is CloudDirect's expert support SLA? It doesn't know the answer. It doesn't have that context. It was never trained. It doesn't have business context. And this is where the next stage comes in. I would encourage every single person on this call that wants to adopt AI to go and experiment with this. It's not hard. Microsoft make it incredibly easy to do. But when you can start experimenting and understanding the power, then it becomes the art of the possible comes into view. But in this particular context, what you do is your data person, your admin person, gets a load of business context information. That could be, I don't know, your sales and marketing information, your pamphlets about stuff. It could be your service guides. It could be your knowledge base, whatever. It's a bunch of knowledge you are feeding into a process. So when you ask the question, both the relevant data from your pool of data in pink there, plus the question, it's passed to the large language model, and it finds the needle in the haystack and provides you a business context answer. So this is the, here we've got the business question, here we've got the business knowledge, and the question and the knowledge together gets you to the answer. And it can know more than any one person ever could. What if that doesn't provide you the answer that you need? Then you need to go a little bit further off piece and create your own customized model. Take your data, stop treating data as HR data, think of it holistically. It's data in your business, it has value. If you're going to do any of these projects, you want to maximize the outcome. So maximize the data you're making available to it, including your database, your unstructured data, your semi-structured data. All that gets pulled in and it gets trained. And this model is training and training and training. Sometimes this training can take about 5 minutes, sometimes it's 5 hours, sometimes probably not for anyone on this audience 5 days. I know that these very large language models, which you won't be dealing with anything anywhere near as powerful as that, they tend to take sort of like a couple of weeks, and you are nowhere near in that kind of ballpark of data. So now you have loads of knowledge but no ability to communicate with it. So you pair it with a foundational model, i.e. something that can, a large language, something's capable of speaking like a ChatGPT. You bring them together and now I can talk with knowledge, and that is your custom model. And the process for that, and this is the process I went this morning. I had some remote data, it was on YouTube. I needed to process that data by transcribing it. I then saved it to a Word document, and it took me about an hour to go and do that. And that was about 60% of the effort. Getting your data, getting it to the right place, making sure it's only the data that you need to be able to do the job is important. And then you train it. This can be a quick or long process depending on the volume and complexity of the data, but it analyzes it using what's called an algorithm, but basically a skill to come up, and it's effectively a teacher teaching a student really rapidly, and you end up with a model that is, the Cloud Direct AI that knows everything about our product, everything about every support ticket that was ever raised. Probably didn't get approval from finance to go and use that data, and every bit of marketing data and every word that was written on the website. It knows it, for example, it can know all of that. So now it's one of the smartest people in your business with instant knowledge. So this could be an internal tool in that example, or it could be an external tool if you wanted. So ultimately, whatever that knowledge is, you want to put it to work. So that would be maybe 10% of the effort is operationalizing that model, that capability. So you've created the genius, you've created the smart person in the room. Now you want it to do something, and that might be, if this was a chatbot, I want to ask it questions. Or you may want to put it to work in other ways. So let's say you had a website that sold widgets. An order is placed on the website, an order table is updated, and maybe some organizations may go and tie their finance systems into that, so they may be getting financial insights. Unusual, but maybe they're doing it. Nothing particularly sexy there. But that widget needs to be posted, and so we need to control our stock, and that needs to be sent out and delivered. So maybe, and again unlikely, but it's now starting to be a bit cooler. We've now got real-time integration between web orders and our inventory and warehouse management systems. And then maybe we also link it to our marketing system. Hang on, that seems a little bit strange. Those they don't necessarily seem to align. But then if we feed those two data sets into a machine learning model, it can start gaining insights. And then maybe we'll get it more. Maybe we'll actually drive the support ticket system and add that into the mix. And now machine learning has access to more data, more teachers. Now it's able to think and identify predictions. So now it's receiving all this data, and it's been trained on a level of knowledge, and now it's getting new information and putting that knowledge to work, making recommendations. It's saying, if you want to bring a widget 2.0 on, I predict that in the first year, it will make £1 million worth of revenue. It can do that because of its historical context and data. It knows that product A generally sells better than product B, and therefore if you introduce product C, which is more like product A, it's likely to go and get more sales. It also identifies that there is a bottleneck, because when we undertake marketing activities, they are so successful and drive so much traffic, it overwhelms the inventory management system. And now customers are phoning up complaining because their orders aren't arriving because they didn't have enough stock to fulfill it, and they're waiting on the supply chain. But now the AI's turned around and said, there's a campaign going on. I'm going to increase the order in my inventory management before the execution of that campaign to make sure I have the stock levels needed. And also I know there's going to be some downtime, so I'm not going to place an order to lower my stock levels so my company is more cash rich. These are simple examples. It sounds complicated. It really isn't. Honestly, give me, I don't know, if I had access to this, give me a day and a half, 2 days, I could probably build this. So stop thinking about data as being customer data, operational data, employee data, product data. Just think of it as data. Holistically, I have a data estate and it has a load of untapped value. Let's tap into that value. So you do that by selecting the data you want to centralize so you can then analyze it. You can deliver AI against it, and you can deliver more efficient operations. You can provide deeper insights, maybe understand predict the total value, lifetime value of a customer. Deliver better quality products to the market because it's analysing support complaints and tickets and making recommendations on how to go and improve the products and services that you offer. So how would you do it? Step one, migrate. As we said at the top of the call, you want to migrate. You want to modernize your data. You want to do the analytics, and you want to drive the AI and machine learning. On the top, we've got our data. On the bottom, we've got an application-centric view. Depending on what you're trying to do, are you trying to build smarter apps? Are you trying to get to better data analytics? Are you trying to create more apps to empower your workforce or your external stakeholders? Or are you just looking to drive insights from your business and drive internal operations? Whatever your perspective is, whether it's an application or a data perspective, the journey from foundational to strategic is very similar. So, as an example, if it loads, yes, I built an AI. I fed it a whole load of Cloud Direct information. So I can turn around and say, what is Cloud Direct's expert support SLA? And don't worry about the spelling mistakes. It's perfectly fine with those. So it's going to have a think about it, and it's basically looking through the documentation. Now, the way this is actually configured is actually on very disparate things all over the world, which is why its performance isn't as snappy as it would be if I was delivering this out of Azure. But you can see that it's managed to find the information and it's providing a response to that. Now, the other thing to point out is if I say, when this is finished, who is Leon Godwin? Likewise, it will have a look at that and it will analyse and says, I'm the principal cloud evangelist. I'm an expert apparently in doing stuff. I deliver lots of different capabilities and knowledge around different subjects. But what if I was being a bit naughty? How much, what is Leon's salary? You wouldn't want it to answer that. And hopefully it won't know the answer. So yes, it doesn't have that information on salary. That's a good thing, because what I did was I made sure that when I uploaded certain documentation, I went through a process of cleaning that data to make sure the information wasn't present. Right, let's say it was a legal firm and you wanted to go through, they had a problem where they're always transcribing, I don't know, police recordings or legal secretaries recorded something. They're constantly transcribing information. They've also got huge, lengthy, complex legal documents that are very difficult to understand. If you could operationalize and simplify that and make that more efficient, you get better outcomes. Now, you could do that by say working with someone like Cloud Direct that would assist with what is your current estate, what is your data, where is it stored, and how can we exploit it for better gain. And then internally you identify your data sources that you want to go and use. Then maybe we'll set up the Azure services, cognitive search, and a variety of other services that can fulfill the outcome. And then we'll put that to work analysing that data and creating a custom model that is a legal expert or maybe a legal assistant. And then you want to make sure that everything that's been built is operational, secure, and deployable and exploitable by your staff. And then internally they'd undertake testing. But what you'd end up with is an outcome that every recording gets transcribed accurately and really, really quickly. All lengthy legal documents are able to summarize the key and compelling points within those documents, so you can start chatting with your data and making it much more and driving those insights rather than have to read, listen through hours of tapes or listen to read hundreds of pages of documents. You can distill it all down into the key points on A4 that gives you, right, okay, now I've got the information I need to be able to pivot off to the next task. So whilst we've been on the call, there have been some questions coming in. So can I utilize Azure AI directly on Salesforce, or do we have to extract the data first? Depends on what you want to do. There are connectors within the environment that can do that. It depends on what you want to do. So yes, there are connectors that will connect you to it that allows you to read that information. But if you're looking to do something that is a bit more intensive, then what you would do is use that connector to copy the data locally, maybe constantly keeping it in sync, and then doing your AI. So both. So for example, if you were to use Azure or even Power Automate, there are connections to Salesforce. I've used them myself, and it allows me just to write a query, and it's going off and it's grabbing the data from there and providing the answer without having to bring it locally. But generally speaking, in Salesforce, I would argue you'd probably want to bring it locally. If for no other reasons, you probably want to clean that data. How do we ensure that our work with AI stays ethical? This is a fantastic question, and I've written a little bit about this on my LinkedIn profile. AI is really new, and there's a whole load of stuff going on. And to be honest, there's a whole bunch of people that know a whole lot about it, and there's a whole bunch of people that's an even bigger bunch of people that don't, but want to make use of it. And what does that mean? So every single one of you probably has a website, and you probably have a data policy on there. You have to comply with GDPR, for example. So you have internal policies that structure what you do. The way you will use AI, you need to publicize how you are going to use it and what data you're going to use and not use, and how you're going to treat that data, which will be different with AI than how you might do it pre-AI. So you need to publicize that. You also want to have a think about, what is the goal? Am I looking for level 1, where I'm looking just to provide AI assistance to a human? Or am I looking to replace that human with something that's more cost effective and faster? And so if you are going to do that, you need to state what the implications of the adoption of AI is going to be on your business, and you need to publicize that. I would encourage you to have a look through my my blog. I think I've written something similar on this subject around the charitable sector on my LinkedIn profile, so you can have a look at that for a bit more information. Can you give clarification on how you clean the data? What do you mean by cleaning the data? Fantastic question, and to be honest, really important question, because it kind of underpins everything, rubbish in, rubbish out. So cleaning the data, just think of it, if we put it in Excel terms. If you've got a whole bunch of data and it goes surname, comma, Christian name, and you want it to be one column to be Christian name and another column to be surname, you need to be able to transpose that first column A's data that contains surname, comma, Christian name, and you need to write a little bit of code that will turn around and extract the Christian name, extract the first name, populate these other ones. Or if it's in a data format, in a date format that is incorrect. If people have started using, you've got the cell is formatted as text, but the information going in there is numbers. This is what I mean by cleaning the data. It's making sure that it's right and in the right condition for your use cases. It may be that the answer is cleaning your data just means deleting column A because I want to anonymize the data. I want it to have the capability of knowing stuff, but which user it applied to is completely irrelevant. If you were teaching someone on support tickets and this same thing happened 1,000 times over and the fix was the same every time, and you trained a model to say, I know how to recognize that and I can automate the fix for that. If that's what you trained, actually the username of the people that phoned up is irrelevant. You don't need to know that. You need to know how to identify the problem and how to identify it. So cleaning data means getting rid of stuff that you don't need. Making sure that the stuff that you get rid of is aligns with your established policies, and then it's making sure it's in the right format for your users. And can we have a copy of the slides? Yes, you absolutely can. If it's on my hard drive, it's available to you. Now, what I will say is I offer a one-to-one. Oh, and if you wouldn't mind voting on how valuable you thought this webinar is, I'd very much appreciate it. I also offer one-to-one workshops. So if that's something that you would be interested in, then reach out. I find that I can, we can have it about your business. This has been very generic for a broad audience, for in and not in the cloud. If you want to have a one-to-one, we can look at your business context, look at your data, your business challenge, and try to paint the art of the possible and see what business value AI could have for your specific business. So we're getting some feedback in, and it seems, as a general rule, this is more like than not like, which is 4.5. I'll take it. Oh, 4.4. How disappointing. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're interested in a one-to-one or finding out any more information, please reach out. And thank you for your time.